I've got the honour actually of saying thank you, which is a lovely job to do. So I'd like to begin by thanking everyone for being here tonight. I think, know everyone, and the check's in the door, in the post, by the way. But thanks very much for coming along. It actually means a lot to me, and I know this hour, at this time, or rather this time in this part of Dublin, isn't an easy place to come to, especially if you've got families, or if you don't have families, it's not an easy place to get to at 6 o'clock. So really appreciate the effort you've all made to be here. It makes it very special. There are a few people I want to single out for a special mention. I'd like to start with John Banville for doing the honour tonight of being the celebratory host of the launch. About 2 years ago, I got an email at work from what I thought was John Banville. I remember it very vividly because it came between a reminder to do an anti-money laundering course, and I think that the risk function had moved to the second floor. So John's email stood out for that reason, but I thought that originally it was a kind of a hoax. But then when I read the email, I said, no, this has to be John, because he'd been in touch with Henry Hardy, and John asked if he could read my TypeScript, which at that stage was still in draft. So I sent John the TypeScript. He came back. It was very encouraging, and basically also offered to write an endorsement or a blurb. And I can only believe that endorsement helped clinch the Bloomsbury as the publisher of the book. I was a complete unknown, and if you get an endorsement from the likes of John Banville, well, that's the stuff of dreams, and it actually, I think, was critical for my book getting published. And I mean that, it's not false humility. John then, as I say, he doesn't do these book launches, so when he agreed to do this, I was very, very touched by that, and very touched by what he said about my book. As you say, we live in very strange and chilling and kind of weird times where things like truth and reason, knowledge, toleration are up for grabs in a way that we never thought those things. We thought they were sacred. As sacred as, it's sun coming up in the morning, and even that's now up for grabs. With global warming, there's nothing we could take for granted anymore. So thanks, John, for those very kind words. Very touched by them. The second person I'd like to thank, obviously, is Morris. Morris said some very kind words as well, and very perceptive words about my book. He's only read a couple of chapters, but he seems to have got the gist of what I'm trying to do. Morris, also, as you may or not know, is the owner of this bookshop, and bookshops like these are really important. They're kind of little islands of civilization. So I was very happy that Morris agreed to provide the venue for tonight, because I like bookshops like this, and this lovely cafe to come actually in the middle of the day. It's a quiet place and very civilized. He also is co-editor of the Dublin Review of Books, which again is a great engine for intellectual life in Ireland. I think at this stage it's increasingly competing with the London Review of Books, the New York Review of Books. It's brave, and it's got real intellectual integrity. And I've been very honoured to contribute to it in the last number of years. Other people I'd like to thank is Eddie Highland. Eddie Highland's here today. Eddie was the person who got me onto the philosophical drug. He's a philosophical pusher par excellence. He's got addicts all over the country. Eddie, I won't push the metaphor any further than that. But Eddie taught me, introduced me to the history of ideas when I was a history student who was only really looking at events. And in my second year, he got me onto the history of political thought, and I never really looked back. And he was a huge support to me intellectually and psychologically in all sorts of ways when I was a student and a postgrad. And I kind of left academic life pretty abruptly in 1998 and was full of shame and embarrassment for about 20 years, and I'd never got in touch with Eddie. I waved goodbye to the place and I waved goodbye to the people. And a couple of years ago, I finished the first draft and I felt I could contact Eddie. It was all in my own mind. Eddie was saying, well, where were you for the last 20 years? So it just shows you these emotions, they can play tricks on you. And Eddie read the manuscript and came back with some great suggestions. So thanks, Eddie, for everything you've done, and his wife's Breed here tonight, so I'm delighted about that. There are a few people that can't be here tonight who I'd like to highlight. One of them is Henry Hardy. One of the reasons, the main reason I can write a book like the book I wrote is because of Henry. Isaiah Berlin actually wrote all the words, but it was Henry that made them available to the public. So we're almost as much indebted to Henry as we are to Isaiah Berlin. He's almost like Isaiah's Boswell. Henry was meant to be here tonight. Last minute something came up, so he couldn't be here, but he was I sent him the draft of my book out of the blue. He's an Oxford Don, and I sent him the preface, and he got back within an hour. I realised this level of alacrity is Henry's modus operandi. And then I sent him the book, which was about 120,000 words, and he got back to me in 3 days, and he said, we've got to get this published. So that was great, because I didn't know until that moment if it was worthless or it had any worth. And he's written the foreword to my book, which again was very kind of him. Henry's book, by the way, my book has been launched today. It's now available in the bookshops, but so is Henry's, the paperback edition. So both of them are available downstairs. So make sure you check out Henry's after you buy my one. The other people I'd like to mention are my mother and father, who can't be here today. They were neither of them had a philosophical bone in their body, but it didn't stop them, who had no third level education, sending me to get third level, and supporting me when they probably had no idea what I was doing. And that's a level of generosity I think you can't beat. When someone helps you, and they don't really know what you're doing. So I'll be forever in their debt for that, and I miss them greatly. Finally, I'd like to thank my family, Aisling and the 3 kids. I'm not sure what it's like to live with me, if I'm honest.
Actually, grab the mic there. You
Yes. But I imagine it can't be easy. Let me put it that way. And when I did start writing this book, I did feel I was probably adding insult to grievous injury. I've been working late at night, but I was also doing Saturdays and that. So thanks very much, Ash and the kids. Paragons of patience and forbearance and all the other virtues someone needs to write a book. I think that's it. I hope I haven't missed anyone. If I have, I apologise. But I'm really glad you're all here tonight. As I say, you're welcome to have a drink here, and then I've actually booked an area up in the intellectual mecca that is Coffee on Seine, because it's an area where you can get at least a place where we're not shoved around the place, and there'll be chairs there for people who want to sit down. So we're going to mosey on up there, because I think this place will probably close around 7ish or whatever. So we can head up there and have a few more drinks and prolong the night. So again, thank you very much. I'm delighted that today came. I have another book on the way. So you're warned.
Reviews are forthcoming.
Yes. So thanks again, and enjoy the evening. Thank you.